Hello, this is Erica with Launching Legacies. Welcome to day 2 of The Great Escape. Today we're going to talk about altered states. So yesterday we talked about the Great Escape, how people often want to escape suffering, hardship, difficulties. They want to escape anything that's not comfortable. And we read a passage from Ecclesiastes chapter 9, chapter 9, verses 18 and 19, 11 and 12, excuse me. And when we read that passage, we were discussing how important it is to understand that things that are difficult happen to everybody, no matter what their positioning, no matter how smart they are, how much money they have, how wise, talented, gifted. And the passage goes on to say that this is what happens. People are going to suffer in no matter what state or what level of success they're in. And so the devotional series is dedicated to people's tendency to want to escape difficulty, hardship, or pain. And today is going to talk about altered states because it's another place where people hide and escape from how they're feeling, especially when their feelings are negative or things that they don't want to deal with. And so we're going to talk about drunkenness, debauchery, the use of drugs and other things that people use to escape these feelings of discomfort or even anxiety, angst, anything that is negative. So as a counselor and a life coach, we see a lot of people come in with different types of addictions. And while we definitely see substance abuse, we also see things like shopping addictions, gambling addictions, sex addictions, things like that. And oftentimes they're all being used to kind of escape one place and get to the next place. And so it kind of goes into the same trend of people are often trying to, again, escape their reality because the reality that they've constructed either from experiences or from bad situations, sometimes from memories, and is so negative that they don't want to be there. And so the movement is towards using something, if they can't just ignore it, using some tool or some strategy or some substance to move from this state of distress and disdain and not having enough or feeling insignificant to a place in which they feel more empowered or they feel carefree. Right. And so that brings in some verses that we're going to look at about it. So basically, not hard to imagine that the Bible doesn't really, it doesn't speak kindly of drunkenness. Now, again, drinking alcohol is not really frowned upon because we know that Jesus turned water into wine. We know that ancient Hebrew culture, and really just Hebrew culture all the way through from the Old Testament to the New Testament, would have involved the use of alcohol. So people would have drunk what would have been like a fermented beverage, maybe similar to what our beer and wine would have been like, probably closer to what our beer would have been like, but they called it wine, and it was made from fruits, and it was fermented, and so it was an alcoholic beverage. That's definitely true. But what wasn't happening, what was happening, but what wasn't spoken kindly of, despite the consistent use of alcohol throughout the culture and community, was the drunkenness from alcohol, right? And so what we find is a series of scriptures that deal with drunkenness as an issue. Galatians listed as amongst other things that needs to be avoided, that you need to, clean yourself from. And in the book of Ephesians, we see in Ephesians 5, it's a strict direction. Don't get drunk, right? Don't get drunk with wine. It's it will ruin your life. It's debauchery, and it'll ruin your life. It'll take over your life. Instead, be full with the Spirit. And that's Ephesians 5, verse 18. But we can also look in Proverbs, and it's talking about a wine bibber and things that are like eating too much, drinking too much is excess. And so what the scriptures allude to, and there are many scriptures, at least 35 or more, in which we're talking about wine and drunkenness, or the overuse of wine, and even some mentions to overeating food, but also overeating other strong things like possibly hallucinogens and whatnot mentioned here. And so what we're seeing seeing, though, is that this escaping behavior is not new. This escaping behavior is something that's been happening since Genesis. As Noah, we see the first sign of drunkenness here with Noah, and it moves all the way through to the end of the Bible, which means that we should recognize if it was present then, it's present now. And of course, we see it present now. So what's happening? What's happening with people that makes them want to escape? Well, it's the same thing we kind of discussed yesterday. The discomfort of our lives, right? Wanting to get out of the season, the situation that we're in, will draw us to different types of addictions or vices that tend to hold us tightly, especially if we don't deal with what's really going on. And so a lot of times when we do a lot of counseling work with people who have addictions, substance abuse issues, they never fully work through is the why. Like, what is the importance or the value of the use of this substance for me? What am I trying to get away from more so than what I'm trying to get to? Because people will say, well, when I'm high or when I'm drunk, I'm free, or I don't have to worry about this. I don't worry about that. And it's like, okay, yeah, but what are you running from? That's what you're running to. You're running to a feeling of not being closed in or boxed in by life. But what in life is boxing you in? And how can we, rather than escape them, recognize and put them on the table? Because again, the scripture in Ecclesiastes says, listen, no matter what happens, if your circumstance changes or whatever changes, you're going to still have these difficulties. So you'll always have something that you're going to be trying to escape. How can we get you to a place in which you can understand that needing to escape is not really as necessary as your mind has conditioned it to believe? And so the use of these substances are beneficial if you're going to use them as a gateway to get to another feeling or another place. But what if you didn't need to escape? What if you could stay right here and be sustained in where you are? Because that's the desire that God has for us, that even in our suffering, we would be able to rest and trust and be at peace instead of having to do this great escape to an altered state. And so, because what a lot of times you'll see addicts say, and sometimes if they've been addicts for a long time, if they've been using for a long time, they'll stop saying this. But initially, in the beginning, a common statement is, I'm going to stop when. Okay, I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop using when this happens. And so they've got in their mindset that somehow these issues are going to resolve themselves, or their life circumstances are going to be better. And then they'll leave their addiction to abandon their addiction for a better life. But we see that money doesn't seem to change the circumstances. People often get married, have secret addictions, and nobody knows about it. So it doesn't seem to change the circumstances. Definitely people have children, some children even born addicted to substances. So that pregnancy and expecting a life to come doesn't change the circumstances. So if our loved ones don't change it, and our circumstances don't change it, and our finances don't change it, and responsibility doesn't change it, because people lose their jobs all the time for substance abuse and, trying to get to these altered states, then we can be pretty safe that nothing in this world is going to be able to substitute that desire to escape if we keep focusing on things that the world has to offer: money, time, relationships, things like that. And so we have to be very careful. And this is really just like even a general statement outside of addiction, but definitely for those who are addicted, we have to be very careful to think that we're going to escape something by using something else. There isn't a bridge, a doorway, a direction that will get us free from these, the feelings of what life really entails, which is going to be at times pain and distress and difficulty. It will at times include those things. So we have to rely on something greater than what the world has to offer, be it wine or other substances that we use to get to an altered state. The altered state is not permanent. We'll have to return back to this world. We'll have to return back to this state. We'll have to continue to live in this place. And there is no guarantee here that we'll be without suffering, distress, or difficulty. And so if you would continue with us again tomorrow, we're going to continue the Great Escape. And we're going to talk about what other offerings we have other than trying to run away from distress and running to a better solution. And so I'm praying for you. We hope that you're praying for Launching Legacies, because we really do need your prayers. We are hoping that 2018 brings you many blessings, and so we're praying for that as well. But we also want you to pray that 2018 will bring truth into your life, that it would bring correction to the broken places in your life that need to be made well. We don't need to hide. We can be free, and we can let God work through the areas of our life that need to be worked through. And so we will celebrate you in prayer, and we hope that you celebrate us in prayer. And we'll see you again tomorrow with another of our devotional series. Until then, be blessed.